Good afternoon, guys. It is February 24th, 2024. On this video here, I want to talk about um, some ways to be prepared. Um, for anybody who may or may not be aware, there have been some cell service outages nationwide across many different carriers. Fortunately, I have not been affected personally as of right now. That could change. But I wanted to go over some things to just keep in your arsenal for, if things go down like that, how are you going to get your information? How are you going to communicate? Yeah, this isn't gonna fix every issue, but at least in an emergency situation, it'll help you get some more information on what's going on around you. Now, this can apply to many different scenarios. If there's a power outage, if there's bad weather such as big snowstorm, big ice storm, um, you know, severe weather, tornadoes, things like that. I want you to just keep these things in the back of your mind. Now, first of all, when it comes to weather, don't rely solely on your phone for weather alerts. I think that's a common mistake that I see a lot of people making. And there's nothing wrong with, having alerts on your cell phone. It's wonderful, actually. Anytime we've had a tornado for my area, tornado warning for my area, my phone has alerted me right away, pretty much before anything else. Now, that being said, there are ways that you can get information. Now, first of all, old-fashioned radio. Now, a lot of people kind of frown upon these. They're like, oh, these are old school, they're old technology. But I'm going to tell you right now, in an emergency situation, when you don't have cell service, when you don't have power, these are vital. These are one of the most reliable sources of information to the outside world that there is old-fashioned AM/FM radio, or even a weather radio, such as this. You can get something like this, and something that has solar. This can give you weather alerts and different things like that. It's also got a flashlight on it. I believe it can charge your devices too. It's got a USB port on it, so that's very nice to have. You can tune in. Now this one is charged either via solar or crank. Now you can open this crank up and wind it, and stuff like that. So this is a very good option, especially if there's a long-term emergency where there's no power or you have a lot of severe weather. You could not go wrong with one of these. They're excellent. And batteries. Now, this one, does take two AA batteries, but that's pretty standard, and that's really a good way to have this. Now, even if we don't have communication issues, if we are issued a tornado warning or some kind of emergency like that, we always grab these and we take them to our emergency shelter. Just to have a backup, just in case. Don't rely solely on internet, don't rely solely on your phones, because they may not always be there. This is a great source of information, and you can just have this on, tune it into whatever local stations that you have, and listen to updates on the weather situation or whatever the case is. These are so important to have. Even if they're not used on a daily basis, these are very, very important to have in your emergency supplies, because you never know when you're going to need it. And this may be your only source of information to the outside world. And so, just some things to consider. Now, the last thing is two-way radios or walkie-talkies. This isn't necessarily like a phone replacement or anything like that, but these are very useful in an emergency situation. If you keep batteries in them, if you keep them charged up, there's usually 2 of these, 4 of these, something like that, and you can have some communication between your your family members, your members of your household, that kind of stuff. If you needed to stay in contact, but these are limited. It's not like a cell phone. And again, these are just backup options if cell service is down. And it's something that is very important to have. Now, the other thing is a weather radio. Now, those are more often a radio that gets weather alerts and it sounds really, really loud. I would argue that weather radios are pretty much just as important as a smoke alarm in your house. I think that they are very, very important to give you alerts and updates. They can be powered via, AC power from the wall outlet, or AA or AAA batteries. I'm not sure exactly which. We have one downstairs in my parents' bedroom, and that's how we get alerts. And so those are just some things to really consider. As we're going through things like this, it's things that you need to really think about, because if everything goes out and everything goes down, what are you gonna do? And I just want people to be aware, and honestly, I'm not surprised in the least that this happened. I mean, to me, it's like, okay, things happen. It's just, but this is a great opportunity to kind of reassess what you have in terms of your emergency plans, how you're going to get information, how you're going to get things like that, especially when it comes to weather. It's very, very important. So, and we are in late February going into early March. And at least here in Kentucky, um, you know, March, April, May, June, that time frame window is peak tornado season and peak severe weather season. So, um, I just wanted to bring that to your attention. The other thing that I will mention is outdoor tornado warning sirens. Now, don't rely solely on the sirens. They only cover so much, and they are an outdoor warning system. So when you're inside, you may not hear them. Um, but like I said, this is why having a radio, television, or weather radio is important, because it will most likely give you a faster warning than the sirens would anyway. But that's not to say that the sirens don't have a place, because I have heard that some um, counties, you know, in other parts of the country have opted out of using tornado warning sirens. And I think that is a huge mistake. Um, are they expensive to maintain and run? Yes, I am sure. But I can tell you, I want my tax dollars going to stuff like that rather than all the unnecessary foo-foo fluff stuff. Um, I think it's a very important investment. Um, and it's just an extra layer of protection. Because, like I said, you may not have cell service, and it's just an extra layer of protection. Like, if there are kids playing outside, they're not going to be on their phones necessarily, and a lot of them may not even have phones. I didn't have a phone until I was 13 years old. So, and even still, I didn't have a smartphone that got, weather alerts. I didn't have any of that. In fact, our whole household, we didn't have smartphones until like 4 or 5 years ago. So we had no way of getting direct alerts like that. So I think that the outdoor warning sirens are absolutely vital. I think it's an extra layer of protection, and I think that it is an amount. Now, the sirens aren't going to give you information or anything like that, but they do warn you, like, hey, seek shelter, there's something going on. So that way you can tune into your radio or whatever and try and figure out what's going on. So sirens really do have a place, and a lot of people have kind of thought that they're outdated and they shouldn't be in service because we have cell phones. I gotta tell you, folks, that's a huge mistake, and I would never, ever say that that's a good idea. Ever. I never have, and I never will. Because what we have seen over the last day or two with the cell service is definitely a clear picture of why it is important to have backups, why it is important to have ways to get information. And I went through a bad ice storm in January, February of 2009. Um, and it took out our electricity for about 10 days. Um, and that experience really opened my eyes to um, how important it is to have um, other sources of information besides TV and stuff like that. Back in 2009, we didn't have smartphones. We didn't have fancy stuff like that. We just had TV and internet. I wasn't on the internet, back then at all. I didn't even know how to use the internet. Um, and so it's um, it's just very important to know um, how to get information and how to be aware of the situation when things aren't quite up and running and aren't quite, you know, the way that we've become so accustomed to. Because, um, you know, it is important. It is important to know how to get sources of information and how to, how to look outside of just like, well, let me just look it up on my phone, you know, because I mean, I hate to tell you this, but your phone may not always be there. Your phone may not always be available. Um, and, if it is in like a power outage situation, that's great, but it may not always. Um, and so, which in that case, if it was just a power outage or something, I recommend getting like backup battery banks with USB ports to keep your excuse me, to keep your phone and devices charged and everything like that. It's really important. But if there is a situation such as, you know, a cell service outage, an internet outage, something like that, knowing your options is really important. Knowing how to get information through other means is very important. Um, like I said, these things don't have to be used on a daily basis. These can be kept in your emergency supplies, in your closet or whatever. Um, this is exactly where we keep these items. We keep them in a closet, um, so we know where they are. We do not leave batteries in them so they don't get corroded and all crusty and stuff. Um, but we do have batteries like in a baggie and stuff. And if batteries do leak, I mean, you should be rotating out batteries anyway. But if they do leak, they don't leak in your device and they don't ruin it. So, if these are going to be stored and not used for a long time, you should not just leave batteries in them. Um, and that will um, help protect these from damage. Um, and so, and these are really cheap too. You can get these for like $10 on Amazon. Um, so, anyway, that about does it, I think. Um, I just wanted to come on here and talk about that because, I've seen a lot of people who are like very confused and they're like, well, what am I going to do? And, I can't blame people because when you become accustomed, you have a hard time, but think outside the box, always have backups, and always be prepared because you never know when something like that can happen, and you never know, what to expect. And like I said, storm season is approaching, tornado season is approaching. Um, you know, we don't get them as bad here in Kentucky, at least where I'm at, but we still get tornadoes. And I know that further west, and into the south central United States, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, all of you guys get a lot of that. So, um, so that's just one thing that I think is important, because honestly, when it comes to severe weather like that, I mean, tornadoes can like take out a cell tower. They can take out just about anything, if they're strong enough. And so just be prepared and know how to navigate and know your backup options. And, I always say be prepared and not scared, because if you're prepared and you have backups set up and all ready to go, then it can be like, oh, okay, well, let me go find my radio and see if I can tune in and find out what's going on, because I can tell you that you may not need this for 5, 10 years, but when you do need it, boy, it's a game changer. It's so nice to have. And even if we do have power and we still have cell service, we still use this, when we're under a tornado warning. We tune in and we try and figure out what's going on and stuff. Because, I mean, that's just kind of the way we are. We're kind of old school. I mean, it took us a very long time to finally move to smartphones. I mean, it took us, I don't know, I think when we finally moved to smartphones, it was like late 2018, early 2019. I'm not even kidding. So, um, so these things are nothing new to us. It's nothing new to me. I mean, I'm Gen Z and stuff, and I know a lot of people in my generation who are very confused about radios. Radios are very basic, very reliable, and a good source of information. And they're always good to have as a backup. I'm not saying that you need to use these as your primary source, but just have these just in case something happens to the cell service. Because then if the cell service goes out, you're kind of screwed. The radio is one of the most reliable sources out there, and the radio system tends to be one of the strongest systems to withstand stuff. Not that the radio system can't go down, it's just they tend to not have as many issues. So anyway, I need to wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was informative, and I hope this gave you some ideas on ways that you can get around the cell service outage issues that we've been having. And obviously, if you have access to the internet right now, you're probably watching this video, so it'd be a good time to reassess and think about what your plans are, what your backup options are before something hits, because if you're already prepared and you're ready to go and it hits and you're like, oh, okay, it's radio time, then there's no panicking and worrying about like, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And if you don't know how to operate a radio, give it some practice, practice with it, before an emergency hits, so that way you know how to use one and how to tune into it. And one like this is very, very simple. It's got a little volume control, which is your power. Clicks. Doesn't have batteries in it, so it's not on. But, and then this other one dials you in. You have a antenna for more signal, and you just kind of fine tune it into whatever you want. You have a selection of AM or FM radio, and so anyway, that's a little overview of this. And on that note, I will let you guys go. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos.